So I got a good video for you guys today. So if you guys haven't heard already, Patrick Bet David, the podcast host, the CEO of Valuetainment, did an interview with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. And as some of you might expect, this was kind of a softball interview. He didn't really ask too many deep questions. It could be similar to when the Nelk boys did the podcast with Netanyahu. There's rumors that they were only allowed to ask certain questions. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. PBD didn't ask too many hard questions here, so I'm going to play a clip about it, talk about it, and then Nick Fuentes last night responded to the fact that PBD had Netanyahu on his podcast because PBD has said he's been open to Nick being on his podcast, but he needs to change the way he says a few things. So the problem with Nick is that he's saying mean words. Netanyahu is literally blowing up hospitals, and he's willing to have him on. Very interesting. So I'm going to get into all that. Before I do, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below what you think of the interview and what you think of Nick Fuentes' response. And we're just going to jump right into this.
Prime Minister, what do you say to the critics who say, Israel owns America, Israel is who makes America do things they want them to do, whether it's through AIPAC, whether it's through, funding, money. You'll typically hear this. This has been overly said the last couple of years in a major way. And there's a community of Americans that at this point believe that whatever Israel wants, they make a phone call to America. America better do or else. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I think it's full of hokum. First of all, do you know President Trump? I mean, sort of, I've known him for many years.
Sure.
Okay. You don't make him do anything. He does what he thinks is in America's interest, and he's very forceful about it. When he sees allies who don't step up to the plate, he's not shy about saying it. And we have a different relationship altogether. It's not one of coercion or manipulation. It's one of common interests and common values. And I think that people understand that because Israel is different. It really.
So I will say that I do like President Trump when it comes to a lot of things, but I do think that he tends to change his viewpoints when he gets donations from certain people. So like a lot of people have been saying the reason Trump all of a sudden wants to save TikTok is because there's some guy that donated a lump sum to his campaign that has a financial interest in TikTok. And so that's why he's doing it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But he does get a lot of AIPAC money. So obviously he has a vested interest in Israel through that. So, I like a lot of what he does, but, it seems a little, it seems like he's being forced to kind of stick with Israel no matter what.
We know that we have to fight for ourselves, and we do. But when we fight for ourselves, we fight for you too. Because we fight Iran. Iran tried to murder President Trump not once, but twice. Iran killed and wounded thousands.
There's still has been no proof of this. It's just they said that. When? How? How did Iran even get close to him?
Thousands of Americans with their IEDs, explosive devices, in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran killed 241 Marines in Beirut. They bomb your embassies. They burn American flags. They have mobs chanting, "Death to America, death to America." So when we fight Iran, we're not just fighting our war, we're fighting your war. But we are fighting that war here in the Middle East. And let me tell you what would happen.
And I'm going to be so honest. We should not even have troops over there. So I'm not defending Iran. Yeah, what they've done in the past is wrong. But also, we should have never had troops in Afghanistan and Iraq to begin with because we were looking for weapons of mass destruction. And after 20 years, we never found them. And so we had thousands of troops die because we were looking for those weapons that Bush just really wanted us over there for. It was a waste of time.
Happened. And as someone who had been in the Middle East as a child, I think you can appreciate this. It's not only we who are threatened by Iran, it's our Arab neighbors too. They know that Iran wants to conquer them, pillage their oil fields, take over the Middle East, the maritime routes that control world trade. So they know that. But if you look at who's actually fighting Iran, it's Israel. It's Israel, our brave soldiers, our incredibly brave soldiers. And this tiny country, President Trump asked me, How do you guys do this? I mean, you're such a small country. You know, we're the size of New Jersey, bigger than Rhode Island, but that's it. We're slightly smaller than New Jersey, and we take on this enormous empire with all its proxies, this anti-American empire that threatens to kill the president and chance death to America. How do you do this? And I said, well, you know, you're like an enormous lion, almost like a prehistoric saber-toothed tiger. You're enormous. We're not, but we are. You know, we're the the badger. You know, this little animal.
Absolutely.
So he's rambling here because he's like 75 years old. The reason that he's able to do it is because America gives him $4 billion a year in weapons. And we help them with their Iron Dome, which fends off any missiles that get launched to them. That's why it doesn't matter what the size of their small country is, as long as they have all the weapons they need, which they get from us every single year. January 1st, $4 billion we give to them, and then they use it to buy weapons.
Badger. And you see a badger being, some tiger or lioness is trying to kill it, and it sort of turns around. It has very sharp teeth, and it knows how to go to the weakness points, to the points of vulnerability of the enemy. And you see these things. I watch NGO Wild when my wife lets me because she likes to watch cooking shows. Okay, so late at night after we have this argument, we settle on some compromise, and on Nat Geo Wild, I see these films.
See PBD laughing up with him.
Of this badger, this tiny creature, it's about this big, taking on a lion, and the lion runs away. So Israel is the badger of the international scene. It has the fortitude, the will to fight our enemies because of our history. Because for so long, we didn't have a state, we didn't have an army, we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves, which culminated in this crescendo of massacres that culminated in the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust, in which a third of our people were annihilated. We have that in our bones, in our hearts, in our.
The Holocaust has nothing to do with the Middle East. Like, I get the Holocaust sucked. You lost a lot of people. First off, he wasn't even alive when that happened. Barely anybody was alive when that happened. This is basically the equivalent of black people in America using slavery as an excuse to do whatever the hell they want. You don't get to use a traumatic event that you weren't even a part of and 99% of your people weren't even a part of to justify what you're doing now. That is such a BS excuse. And I hate when people are like, oh, well, we don't want another Holocaust. It's not going to happen. If anything, you're causing one on Gaza right now. You've already killed off, in the past year and a half, like 5% of their total population already. You remember during the pandemic when we all had to lock in our houses because 1% of the population was dying? And that's still we don't even know if that's true because the data was all manipulated, but 1%. Times that by 5, and that's what happened. This is what has happened to those innocent people over there. And everyone's just turning a blind eye. It's crazy.
Our soul, and we fight. And that's I think President Trump would like to see more Israels around the globe because, everybody who says, America first, I can respect that, but I don't think they want America alone. And if you can have allies that actually share your values and fight for them in various parts of the world, and especially in the Middle East with Iran trying to take over the world, I think that's a valuable addition. So
Iran's trying to take over the world. That might be the funniest thing I have ever heard. I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks Iran is trying to take over the world. That's just propaganda on his part. And he says America first is America alone. Yeah, but we should at least be first. We are not first. Like, we're not first at all. And it seems like, Trump is a little more America first than like Biden and Obama and stuff like that. But even so, it's only to an extent. Like, we're funding, personally for me, I'm not a fan of universal health care. I don't think it's the way our health system is right now. I don't think it'd be beneficial. I think it could be if things change. But as of right now, the way our system with all the corporations profiting, big pharma, stuff like that, I don't think it would work. And how unhealthy we are. But Israel has universal health care. We're funding them $4 billion. He's like, oh, America needs allies. We don't need to pay for those allies. You should just be an ally with us. Like, why? How many people in real life pay for friends? You don't pay for friends. If you're an ally, you're an ally. We shouldn't have to buy your allyship.
It'll take time for this to sink in, but it will sink in.
Yeah, the topic of America first, it's become a little bit more clear where people are being put in different groups, America first and America only, and that debate's going on right now, which is a great debate. I actually like listening to both sides make their argument. But you said, do you think President Trump is a type of a man that you can get anything you want and make him do what he wants? I don't think President Trump is. But I do think Biden and others are. So the whole criticism of the fact that Israel, whatever they want, they can call America and have favors being done, I would agree with you on Trump, but with Biden. So maybe a question that I don't think's been asked yet. Putin was asked 2 weeks ago if the war between Ukraine and Russia would have happened under Trump. He said, no, it wouldn't have happened. So for you, would the war and the Hamas attack have happened if President Trump was president instead of Biden?
I don't know. It's a good question, but you said something about Biden that I should just point out the facts. In fact, President Biden supported us in the beginning of the war after this horrific massacre, and he came here, and I very much appreciate it. But as the war progressed and the vilifications of Israel, the distortions on the media began to pile on.
Distortions on the media.
He began to take a different.
Let me just go back to that. He's been attacking the media a lot lately, saying the media is distorted. They're not showing the full truth. They're lying about what's really going on. This man does not allow independent journalists outside of Palestine into Gaza, outside Palestinians. So if you're like an American journalist, you can't go to Gaza. If you're a Chinese journalist, you can't go to Gaza. Wouldn't you think if you let people in there that would help people see the truth? Wouldn't that make people believe? Like if you genuinely feel like you're doing the right thing, you're not in the wrong, why won't you let people see it and report on it? You know? If you're going to censor things, you're never going to be on the right side of history by censoring it. And it does conveniently, the Palestinian journalists that exist in that area keep dying. Netanyahu literally just blew up a hospital, killed 4 of them. Conveniently, he's killed 200 since this October 7th. And then what he did the other day to try and manipulate Americans is he brought a bunch of conservative influencers over there to do videotape and show that there's food there. And they're not starving people. But they didn't show the food being handed out. They didn't show any Palestinians actually receiving the food. They just showed it sitting out in the heat. We don't know how long it's been there. Nobody's arguing that they don't have the resources to feed the people, but they didn't show anything about them actually being fed. So it was just, he literally called conservative influencers they knew were pro-Israel to come over there and spread propaganda for him because he realizes he's losing the media battle. That's all it was. And then these conservative influencers are like, oh, look what the good Israel's doing. Don't you think that if he knew a bunch of influencers were going to prop him up, he would make everything look as good as possible? Like, come on now. The whole thing is just so BS. Like, if you want people to see the truth, let journalists into Gaza to report on things. Until then, no one is going to believe you.
And when we were just 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way in Gaza, I said we have to go into that last position that they had where they had organized battalions. It's in a city called Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And he said, don't go there. And he said, if you do go there, I'll smack an embargo on you. You're fighting a 7-front war, and all of a sudden you're slapped with an embargo of weapons. That was tough. And I said to President Biden, who I've known for many years, I respect the fact you're the president of the United States, but I'm the prime minister of the one and only Jewish state, and we've been fighting to survive in our small place under the sun. It's been a battle that has been going on for 3,500 years. So I'll have to do what we have to do. And then a few days later, Tony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State, came to Israel, and he said, the president is serious about this embargo. And I said, Tony, I know it's serious because you stopped all the weapons. You slow walked them before, but now you've stopped them. And then I said to him this. He said, well, how are you going to do it then? I said, Tony, we'll fight with our fingernails if we have to, but we're not going to leave. It's like the Allies would leave a quarter of the German battalions in place and not go into Berlin. And I said, would you take that? Would you take that, Patrick? Of course you wouldn't. So we didn't take it either. We did it against the opposition of the American president. So much for Israel controlling the United States. We don't. But we do seek to control our destiny. And when somebody...
He literally said, oh, so much for Israel controlling the United States. He literally just admitted he did something against the United States' wishes and nothing bad happened. He got no consequences. America didn't leave their side. Literally just showing that how much the Israel control has, because they literally can do whatever they want.
Commits a crime like they did on October 7th, decapitating our men, raping our women and then murdering them, burning children alive in front of their parents, taking 255 hostages, grandmothers with their grandchildren, this horror, and pledged to do it again and again and again. Well, what choice do we have? We have to fight them and their Iranian patrons, and we did just that. We did that first with American help, then with American opposition, and when President Trump came in.
I don't think anybody, with the exception of Hassan Piker maybe, is going to defend what happened on October 7th. I think that was disgusting, and I think that all those Hamas should be condemned. People that want innocent Palestinians to just live their lives doesn't automatically mean you support Hamas. I think people conflate the two. And just because Hamas exists doesn't mean Israel gets to do whatever the hell they want. They don't get to just bomb anywhere and anything, bomb schools, hospitals. I think they've obliterated like 90% of Palestine or the Gaza area. It's insane if you see like pictures of it. It's so disgusting. Like, what more do you need to destroy at this point? Like, you have the best intelligence agency because you have America backing, and we have the best intelligence agency. You should be able to find these people. Like, we somehow found Osama bin Laden, and you're telling me you can't find Hamas. You're just blindly aiming. Like, his excuse for bombing the hospital 2 days ago and killing 20 people, including 4 journalists, was they were trying to target a Hamas camera or something. So you bombed and killed 20 people to destroy a camera. And then you're just like, my bad. That's the thing with all this stuff, is they can just bomb everything and then it's like, my bad. Oh, sorry. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And nothing happens to them. This is why Israel's losing support for stuff like this. They're being reckless. They're doing whatever the hell they want and no one's stopping them. Because in reality, as long as America backs them, they can do whatever they want. And that's one thing Trump really needs to fix. I thought he was starting to get tough on him when it came to after we bombed Iran and Israel kept it up. And, Trump came out famously, was like, they don't know what the F they're doing. Like, and then Israel backed off and they signed the ceasefire or whatever. I thought Trump was finally going to get, that was when he's getting tough on Israel and like, okay, he's not playing around, but seems like he's kind of backed off since then. Maybe it'll change as, time goes on. I don't know. But as of right now, Israel's losing their support, which is warranted. And instead of like Netanyahu changing his strategy, his goal is just to go on this media tour and get conservative influencers to push his agenda to say we're the good guys instead of like maybe not bombing innocent people. Kind of strange, right? Nick Fuentes responded to this because PBD has been talking about having Nick Fuentes on the podcast. But he said PBD always says that Nick Fuentes needs to stop saying the N-word. That's his big no-no. Once he stops saying the N-word, then he can bring them on, because apparently saying the N-word to people is worse than bombing children. It's amazing, the world we live in. So this is Nick Fuentes responding.
What's going on with Patrick Bet-David? Now, look, I like Patrick Bet-David. I like his crew. I like his show. Show's good. I like his interviews. He talks to Andrew Tate. Very good show with Andrew Tate. Talk to Dan Bilzerian. Great show with Dan Bilzerian. 2 friends of mine. They're both great. So I think he's a patriot. I think he loves America. We have some disagreements, but he's a pretty conservative guy. I consider him in some ways a fellow traveler on some issues. But he's like refusing to not host me on the show. Now, it's his show. It's his prerogative. But it does constitute a refusal Because people are requesting it. The fans are requesting it on my show, on his show. People want to see it. And the reason it should be said that people want to see it is because it's going to be an interesting conversation. Whatever you want to say about me, good, bad, or ugly, I don't think anyone can dispute I'm an original thinker. I have an interesting perspective, a novel perspective. That's why people want me on their shows. I bring the views. And if you look at the comments section of any show that I've done, especially recently, people love it. I did a show with Sam Hyde, with Bradley Martin. I did a debate with Dinesh D'Souza. And the comments are all positive. And even the people that disagree say, well, it was thought-provoking, to say the least. So people have been asking for this collaboration for a while. People are asking me, when are you going to get on his show? And I say, well, it's his show. You got to ask him. And he says he doesn't want to have me on because I say the N-word. Okay. I don't agree with it. I accept that that's your explanation. But then today he has on the Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu. And that's where you got to say, isn't that a double standard? And don't get me wrong, I'm not being obtuse. I'm not being deliberately obtuse. I'm trying to be objective. I'm trying to be fair. I tell it like it is. I understand that Netanyahu is a world leader. So there's a different set of expectations that govern that role when you're a world leader. But Netanyahu is credibly accused of a genocide by the International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court. He was charged with war crimes. And by the way, that's not the Palestinians saying that. The same international bodies that charged Netanyahu with war crimes charged Hamas with war crimes. That's the part that gets buried. They say the ICC is politically motivated. They charged Hamas and Netanyahu with war crimes. And many European governments that are pro-Israel have recognized these rulings as legitimate. So it's not just...
Yeah, I think in like 120 different countries that if Netanyahu stepped foot in, he would get arrested by those countries. I think it's like 120, 125. Like there's like warrants out for his arrest. Same with like Putin. Putin's on the same, like he mentioned Hamas. Putin's the same thing. Putin's wanted for like war crimes, stuff like that. And I just thought about this too. Like PBD has apparently a huge problem with the N-word, even though he's not black. He's had people... like Andrew Tate, who's been accused of human trafficking. He hasn't been found guilty. I'm not gonna be one of those people that's like, oh, he did it. He hasn't been found guilty. We don't know, all the details, but he has been accused of it. He spent time in jail. He's done phone interviews with Suge Knight, of all people, who's literally in prison right now because he just wanted to talk about Diddy. Suge Knight's in prison, and he interviewed him through a prison phone. Like PBD. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm a PB, like as a journalist, you should be interviewing to get all the details, really no matter who it's from. Like I don't have an issue with him interviewing Netanyahu, but to sit there and say, oh, I can't interview this person because he says one word that I don't like, that's insane. You're not, but I'm going to interview this guy at Bombs Hospitals. I'm going to interview this person in prison because I think he stabbed someone or something. I forget why Suge Knight's in prison. He's done a lot of things over the years. But I'm going to interview this person accused of human trafficking. But this guy says the N-word, so that's a no-no. That's insane.
It's me. There's massive protests inside of Israel right now about Netanyahu's handling of the war. They believe he's dragging out the war to prolong his time in office. But of course, why do you have the conversation with somebody like that? Because it's an interesting conversation. It's a big get. It's a big show. It's an interesting interview. But then when it concerns me, I said the N-word, that's the problem. So someone like with Netanyahu, we're going to suspend judgment on the famine, the war crimes, the political assassinations. We're going to suspend the judgment on that for the sake of the interview. But with me, I said on the show, and by the way, let's just be adults. I don't respect adults that say the N-word. Are we babies? Oh, he said the F word. Mommy, he said the F word. He said the S word. He said the D word. We're all adults here. I will not be treated in this diminutive way by black people. What you say, cracker? You can't say. You think you could say that? Yeah. Yeah. And who's going to tell me I can't? You? Why? Because you're black? I'm a grown-ass man. I'm an American. I can say whatever word I like. I could say any swear word, racial slur. Now, granted, we all recognize it's in poor taste to say these words in and out of context, to say the C word towards a woman, to say the N word towards a black person. We understand this. But to penalize somebody for uttering the word, like I just did, without context, just to say, that's the word you got a problem with. What is the word? If I say N word, I'm just making you say it in your head. You all know the word I'm talking about. So on one side, you've got famine, genocide, ethnic cleansing, political assassinations, evading prosecution, arguably taking power, centralizing power in the executive. And on the other side, you have a white guy that deigned to say a racial slur. And you point this out and you say, okay, you have on Andrew Tate, he said the N-word. You have on the war criminal. Isn't that a bit of an extraordinary standard then that's being applied to me? And I actually asked him this on Twitter today. I said, so your problem with me, because he said this on Twitter, he said, well, you know, he says this word and we want it to be a respectful conversation. I said, you've had on Andrew Tate who says the N-word. And by the way, many of your guests, I'm sure, say it in private too. I just say it in public. I said, and I'm nothing but respectful on other debates or conversations. He says, well, yeah, but Tate is black and you're white. Oh, so because I'm white, I can't say it. Tate can say it because he's half white. I can't say it because I'm 80% white. Does that even make sense? And that's even besides the point.
How are you? I'm trying to figure out the math on that. How are you 80% white? I get your part Mexican. What do you mean, like 75%?
Aren't we interested in conversations? As if the restriction is I can't say it on your show, I'll play by the rules. I'm a respectful person. I don't even swear on other people's shows. I try to be respectful, but if that's the reason, it's a little crazy. And then he turns it into, well, you're respectful on shows, but when you react to some shows on your show, then you're intense. Okay, so now it's my reaction off the, what are we doing? And look, you know, I like the guy. If he doesn't want to have me on the show, it's no hard feelings. But I think you lose a lot of credibility. I'm going to give you a little advice. He's giving me advice saying, you know, you're not going to get far using that word. Okay, point taken. And in some sense, I agree with that. I agree with the thrust of what he's saying. My advice to you is if you let something like that get in the way of a good conversation, I think people are going to lose a lot of respect for you. I think you're going to lose a lot of credibility. And I think if you want people to look at your platform as an independent platform that has interesting conversations, that isn't politically correct, you can't have this double standard. And you can't hide anymore. It's 2025. Everyone's on Twitter now. The gates are open. So if you're maintaining this double standard, refusing a guest that is highly demanded, a hot guest that is in high demand over something like that, and it seems like you got this arbitrary standard, I'm telling you, no one's buying it. Everybody's thinking the reason you're not having them on is because it's too controversial and you're afraid of upsetting somebody. That's what everybody's thinking.
I also think too, like, obviously Patrick Bet-David's a businessman. He loves to make money. He's really rich, right? So he wouldn't hesitate in normal circumstances to have a big name person on because he knows it'll draw in views, which will generate YouTube revenue, which will, increase his bank account. What I think, especially when it comes to the Israel-Gaza topic, is I feel like there's a lot of people that are afraid to give like their true opinion on it. Like other conservatives, like Tim Pool kind of stays away from it. Jeremy from the Quartering stays away from it. Like a lot of people just don't talk about it, like Matt Walsh, because at the end of the day, it splits your base. Like the Conservative Party, you have a lot of people that are pro-Israel, and then you have a lot of people like me who are like, I don't like Israel. I think what they're doing is wrong. And I don't know if he's just afraid to split his base by giving his opinion. But I feel like once you're afraid to give an opinion on a topic, you lose your credibility. Like, I listen to Tim Pool a good bit. I don't know where he's been the past week and a half, but I listen to him a good bit because I like his his night show with the conversations. I like shows that have like multiple people, chiming in. And he's usually pretty good at giving his opinion on a lot of things except this issue. But like, if something he says I don't agree with, I'm not going to stop watching him because like I'm not going to agree with every single thing he says. I'm not going to agree with every single thing Trump says. I'm not going to agree with every single thing PBD says. You in this position should not be afraid to give your opinion on a topic, no matter how popular or unpopular it is. And I think a lot of conservative influencers and podcasters are afraid to talk about the Israel-Gaza situation. It should not be. You should not be afraid to talk about it. You give your opinion, what facts you have, debate someone on it, have a conversation about it at least. Like that's the minimum you can do is at least have a conversation about it. Just be like, I want to learn more. Tell me about this. Tell me about this. You could have a pro-Israel person like Destiny on there, and then a pro-Gaza person like Nick Fuentes on there. You could have a debate in some sorts, and you could just absorb the knowledge and learn and see things from a different perspective. But I think it's deemed controversial because this is a controversial topic, especially on the conservative side, because it splits the base. And I think PBD is afraid to do that. That's why in the softball interview with Netanyahu, which a lot of people on X were even upset that he even did that interview. I don't care that he did the interview, but it was a softball interview. He didn't ask really hard questions. He didn't ask like, oh, if people there are actually starving, like people say. He didn't ask if he's just going to stop. He didn't ask anything about the hospital bombing that just happened 2 days ago. He didn't ask any really hard questions, which really makes you think, is it scripted? Was he told not to mention certain things? It really makes you question his integrity. Let me just play this last little bit.
So, look, I mean, I've done a lot of big shows. It would be a big opportunity for me. It's your show. It's your prerogative. But everybody's going to say you lose a lot of credibility when it seems like you're making stuff up like that. And when you're playing games about N-word, I mean, are we not all adults? It's words. It's language. You bring on people that bomb little kids and girls, and you treat them with respect and dignity. Someone that says the N-word, that's beyond the pale. I mean, let's be serious here. So I think it's a little silly. But it's his show. I respect it. It's his show. It's his prerogative. I don't feel entitled to come on his show. But look, you have a show. You have a platform. The expectation is you use the platform to have the most interesting conversations. I'm a hot guest right now. It's in high demand. And you're refusing it, and you're given a reason. Now, if you had said, well, I don't have to tell you my reason, that'd be one thing. But the reason doesn't really make a ton of sense. I think everyone kind of sees that. But it's your call. Aside from that, I got to be honest with you. Netanyahu is clearly hitting the podcast circuit for propaganda purposes. Everybody knows this. It's so obvious. Netanyahu goes on Nelk. He's going on Patrick Bet-David. He's going on other shows. And we all know this is damage control. There was a poll that just came out this week, and it said that for the first time, a poll of the majority of Americans shows that more people in the general audience are sympathetic to Palestine than to Israel. That's the whole population. For the first time ever. And it's not surprising. The American population is more sympathetic to Palestine than to Israel. And with the young people, it's even worse. With the younger demographic and even the Republicans, they're more sympathetic to Palestine than the older generations. And so they're in real trouble here. And it's totally deserved, by the way. It's because we see it. We see the numbers. We see the videos. It's all over Twitter. It's all over TikTok. It is a genocide. It is an ethnic cleansing. It is a forced starvation. It is countless women and children dying. It has raged on now for nearly 2 years. It's totally asymmetrical. This is a nuclear-armed country with the unconditional backing of the world superpower, using the most advanced fighter jets, the most advanced tanks, drones, munitions, waging a war on a civilian population with no standing army. A population that 40% of them are under the age of 18. With no standing army, no government, no military, no ability even to counterattack. They've got no armor. They've got no planes. They've got nothing. And everyone in the whole world is saying, this is shameful. What is happening in Palestine, this is one of those things that will go down in history. Like apartheid, like the Holocaust, like the Armenian genocide. Whatever you think about these various things, whatever you think about them, this is one of those moments that will go down in history. Again, whatever you think about the truth of these various things I've just listed out, it will go down as one of the most shameful things in contemporary history.
So I don't think he's wrong, but I think it depends on how history, we see firsthand how history can be not necessarily changed, but manipulated a certain way. Like, I'm sure history is going to, in the history books 20 years from now, it's going to list Donald Trump as the worst president to ever exist. Now, he really hated America, stuff like that, which we know is not true, right? There's issues with Donald Trump, but overall, I think he does care about the country. I think he's been, in general, I'd probably give him like a B- president, B- so far. He's still got another, 3 years. But I do think, depending on how this is portrayed, this could go down in history as a bad thing. But like I said, it depends. Like, when you kill off 5% of the population of one area in just a year and a half, that's absolutely insane. And that's something that's not being talked about enough. And whether it's our media not talking about it, politicians not speaking up enough, or we're just blindly following along, there's something being done here. And he makes a good point where he's going on the podcast circuit. He's talking to the Nelk boys, who seem just kind of like, I think the Nelk boys are willing to talk to anyone, which I have no issue with. Like, they talked to, I think, Nick shortly after it, having conversations. I don't see the Nelk boys as people generally being like informed on the whole Israel-Gaza situation, but I think they're open to conversations. And then he went on PBD, obviously. I'm sure he's going to be going around other places, talking to whomever. But like, he's obviously trying to get this message out. And like I said, he had the conservative influencers over there in Israel trying to spread his message. He's trying to spread the propaganda instead of actually just fixing the issue, which is just stop bombing children. Like, I don't get why that's so hard. Just stop doing it. Like, stop being a warmonger. Stop bombing hospitals. If you want to defeat Hamas, you can do that without killing innocent people. You can definitely do that. Or at least minimalize it. Like, it literally looks like he's not even trying. Like, he's just doing whatever he wants because America's letting him do whatever he wants. And that needs to change too. Let me know what you guys think about the interview with PBD and Nick Fuentes' response, what America should be doing in this situation, what you guys think of Israel, Gaza in general. In the comments down below, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you next time.